Nuno and João are partners from the Walking Mentorship, and they bring the inside look in the life of the people they walk with. The podcast Keep Walking With Me searches for potential solutions towards the best version of ourselves. Every month, we walk together with a guest. There is a disclaimer that needs to be shared. After listening to this program, you might feel the urge to step outside and go for a long walk. But don't worry, that is absolutely normal.
Welcome to the podcast Keep Walking With Me. Today we have another very special guest walking and talking with us. So, in a nutshell, who is James Wallman?
I would love to fit in a nutshell. Just the thought of a nutshell is nice, no? I was eating nuts at lunchtime today. Sorry. Okay, fine. Hello, I'm James. I've written a couple of books on how to spend time, I guess. I was a trend forecaster, and I came into this world of experiences by forecasting that we were moving from materialism to experientialism, i.e. we would find happiness, identity and status in experiences rather than things. And I wrote that book, Stuffocation, then another one called Time and How to Spend It, because the first one was, how should you spend your money? Stuff or experiences? And the answer was experiences. And people would then say to me, great, what kind of experiences? And I had some ideas, and clearly you guys have some great ideas, but I didn't know the answer, so I went to talk to people cleverer than me and asked them what they thought, and psychologists and economists and sociologists and stuff, and then wrote this book, Time and How to Spend It. And then I founded the World Experience Organization, which was a follow-on from that as well. It's how do we get more people to care less about things? That's not to say you don't need a great pair of walking boots. You need a good backpack. You need things to have experiences. Experiential goods are good, but what you need is experiences. Sorry, that's probably me in a nutshell. And I'm a dad to a brilliant but quite frustrating 14-year-old daughter and a beautiful but also quite annoying but brilliant 12-year-old boy. But maybe that says something about me rather than them.
Well, on a positive note, they eventually grow. So being a dad of three that have been through those ages,
okay,
things get much, much, much different. I wouldn't say better, but different. Well,
and different is good too.
James, before the books, okay, you mentioned the books, before the talks, before the world experience, what experience shaped you as a human being was kind of a terrific moment, maybe a specific moment when you realized that experience mattered more than possessions. Can you share it with us?
Whoa, okay, thanks. That's a great question. A whole bunch of things. My parents split up when I was a kid, and so we used to have weekend. Every other weekend was with my dad, and we used to do things. We used to do all sorts of things. We'd go on marches for the CND march. We'd go to concerts, like we'd see Queen and Michael Jackson. We would go climbing. We would go to concerts, classical music concerts. We'd play cricket in the park. We drove to the south of France. We did things. And that's so doing things was very valuable to me. I mean, I also had great holidays with my mum, for what it's worth, as well. But it's not to say we were super wealthy. I'm not sort of saying they were sort of like super fancy holidays. They were like swimming in the sea. And I think because in my 20s, there were times when I had a fair bit of money. And there were times when I had almost none. And in fact, there was a period where I earned the same in a week as I earned in a year. And when I earned quite a lot of money in a week, I bought things. And I realized that I was just as happy when I didn't have much money as to when I had a lot of money. It's just a different circumstance. One of the interesting things about materialism versus experientialism is fancier stuff is better than not so fancy stuff. But fancy experiences aren't necessarily better than, just going for a walk. Let's stay on brand here, right? But, really, really going for a walk in the woods with a friend or with your dog, or going to the local park. I've just been playing badminton outside our office with one of my colleagues with a set that I bought from Decathlon. And it was great. It was really nice. And yeah, so experiences are just, so I think that's where I wouldn't say there was like one moment. There was a whole thing that's in me. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I'm still curious. Experientialism, kind of as a definition. How would you define that? I mean,
this is a great question. It's just as materialism in an economic social sense. So this is not experientialism as in the philosophical sense, in the same way that materialism has a philosophical sense and it has a socio-economic sense.
Yeah.
So we all understand that materialism is believing that material things will make you happier and healthier. And there's a brilliant book by a guy called Tim Kasser, I think, an American, about the high price of materialism. Materialism is the value system that's underpinned the rise of consumerism. We think that if we get more stuff that we don't really need, it will make us happier. And actually that's turned into this incredible economic engine, which has made us rich over the past 100 years or so. And so experience, it's a socio-economic term that's about what we believe and how we therefore act. So just as materialism means, I'm going to find happiness, identity and status in material things, experientialism is the belief and the practice that you will find happiness, identity, status and meaning in experiences instead.
Wow. And on that note, so you have studied, you have probably designed experience all over the world. I'm curious, what are the common ingredients that make people feel truly alive, regardless of culture or status or geography? Give us the menu.
Thank you so much. And I don't want to just go into trying to sell the idea that was in my book, but I'm a great believer in class-based forecasting. And I say that, I'm stealing that from, what's his name, that super clever guy who wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman, right? So and others talk about, so class-based forecasting is, I think put simply is, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And what I mean by that is, if generally getting enough sleep is good for the health and happiness of a human, it means that you as a human should probably bear that in mind and get enough sleep. And so the work that I did was to not, let's take a really good example, and I will come to the answer, think about music. Now, I don't really like heavy metal. I do like certain kind, and I don't like some of the modern kind of drill rap that my daughter listens to, but I like some hip hop, a lot of hip hop. I used to be really into hip hop, and I like a lot of rock music. But the truth is, for a human, music is great for us. We love music. You can get into music, you can lose yourself in music, you can dance to music, you can listen. There's all sorts of magic that comes with music. So we are all snowflakes, but we're all snow, is another way of thinking about this. So you may like a different music to me, but we know that music is good. So the menu, and you put that really well there, is stories, S-T-O-R-I-E-S. I know that you can spell stories, but this was me trying to make up a mnemonic, an easy way to remember this. And this is based on, science rather than me saying this. So this is not my discovery. I just sort of put it into a neat package that makes it easy to remember. And so that is story, transformation, outside and offline, relationships, intensity, extraordinary, and then status and significance. So the first one, story. Do you want me to run through them?
Please.
Okay.
Please do.
So story, the first one is, the wild magic of story. Stories are an evolutionary adaptation that has enabled humans to come together in large groups and survive. We are a hypersocial species, and stories are the glue, one of the glues, but actually one of the most important glues that bind us. If you look at, I think like bonobos and gorillas and chimps, but our nearest cousins, who we were, I think, about 6 million years ago, I think we separated from them, something like that. And, one of the things that you see, they get together in bands up to a certain size. I think, forgive me, I think it might be 40 or 50 or maybe it's slightly more than that. But humans can come together in groups that are huge, that are millions. You can think about how many Muslims there are in the world who, when a Muslim meets another Muslim, they believe a certain kind of thing. They've got a certain kind of story of belief. And therefore, they're like, you go to Jeddah or you go to Riyadh or Medina, if you go on the Hajj, you're like, yeah, brother, you think what I think. We're as one. You see that connection, and that means you're in a tribe. That's a wonderful thing. But stories are a really useful thing about, I think, for when things go wrong. And let's come to walking. There are times that you go walking and the rain comes in and the wind comes in and it's miserable. It's awful. Maybe you also fall, right? You fall and hurt yourself. You slip. It becomes a trial as opposed to a joy. Mm-hmm. But the magic, this is one of the reasons why experience is the best of the material goods at making us happy, is that an experience that goes wrong, unless it goes really, really, really deeply wrong and really, really wrong, but generally turns into a story.
Great story, yeah.
And a story, that's the shape of story. I mean, the essential shape of story that is been seen in every culture around the world is a version of the hero's journey. But it's basically person who we care about a little bit, has a problem, deals with it, and comes out the other side. It could be a hole, it could be a mountain, it doesn't really matter. But you need something in the way. You need something to go wrong to turn into a story. And there is research by researchers in the States, Tom Gilovich and some of those other guys, that shows that if I was to tell you about my chair, it's not unless it's a really interesting chair, but chairs generally are just a chair. But if I was to tell you about the time something went wrong, we all want to hear that story. We're all sort of hardwired to hear a story like that. So story, in and of itself, having an experience as a first-person story, sharing that story with someone else is magic. So if you have an experience, something happens, story. Okay, T, transformation. This is about, being who we are, truly, who we feel who being true to ourselves. And I say that as given that I'm a white heterosexual man in a marriage in a fairly standard life, I don't need to kind of pretend. But all those people who are able to now share that they're, if they want to change gender or they're homosexual, you think about what, homosexuality has changed in terms of how our society responds to it over, recent years. And I'm trying to think of the guy, famous actor in the UK, and when he came out on radio in the 1990s, I think it was, and he just sort of said it, and it was like this big deal at the time. He was like, phew, I don't have to try and be something I'm not anymore. I can just be who I am. And that is just, figuring out who we are and being that person is so good for us, right? And so transformation is about being that person, but also becoming that person who we can become. We are built to evolve and grow. And, experiences that help you learn something about yourself, learn something about the world, or grow in some way are just, if you look at self-determination theory, for example, the way to remember that is, I remember it as MARS, M-A-R-S, S actually is status, but mastery, autonomy, and relatedness. Mastery is being good at something. We love that. Okay, outside and offline. Magic as the telephones are, we spend too much time on them. They're terrible for happiness. Put your phone down, go for a walk, and don't take pictures of everything. Just look at it with your eyes and let it go through, I said one of the reasons why outside is so good for us is exercise. There's no proof that exercise makes people happy, but they don't know whether it's happy people do more exercise or or exercise makes us happy. There's this bi-directional causal loop, and they don't know which way it actually goes. But the answer to me is really simple. If you don't know which way it goes, just do exercise, because it'll either mean that you are happy or it'll help you be happy. Who cares how it works? Do the exercise. Be happy. If happiness is important to you, and why not enjoy your life? R is relationships. I'm going to sort of tighten this up, otherwise I'm going to take too much of the time talking through this. But just, we're a hypersocial species. And research shows that if you go commuting, this is a research originally done in Chicago, but also they've done it in the UK. If you commute in a taxi, a bus, train, and you don't talk to people versus if you talk to people, when you do the research, the people that talk to people, just happier. It just works, right? We also think other people don't want to talk to us, and so we therefore hold back from talking to people. Turns out they're open to a conversation. Obviously, you find out pretty quickly if people aren't. And we all need our own space at time. I is intensity, which is flow. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's wonderful discovery from, I think, the 80s. Flow is being in the moment. It's playing tennis, it's making love, it's dancing, like you really mean it. It's doing something that is where you're not thinking about deadlines and you're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about all those things you haven't done, you are in the moment. And it's I think the interesting thing about that I for intensity is that most people miswant this idea of the easy life. They miswant this idea when the work is done, I put my feet up and do nothing. And actually, that doesn't make people happy. Sitting by a swimming pool, reading a book is nice, okay, but sitting by a pool, checking your email is a disastrous way to spend a vacation. And just sitting around is not good for us humans. Tough things are really good for us. The E for extraordinary is a bit of a cheat because ordinary things are great too. Having a cup of tea with a friend, or a umgalao for you guys, I imagine, or or just going for a walk, right? Ordinary things are really magic, and so are extraordinary things. And that's not, it's a bit like, if every day was Christmas, what day is Christmas Day? To have for the stars to be there, you need the dark sky. But that doesn't completely remove the point. Extraordinary moments build social capital. Those memories stay with us, and that builds it's a bit like money in the bank. It makes us what's the right word? It protects us in the longer term from feeling like there's nothing going on, no meaning. And extraordinary is also about awe, being in nature and looking up at something huge. The sky at night is a wonderful thing, or looking at the clouds and having a sense of how small we are versus how huge things are. The sense of awe is wonderful for us, opens us up, maybe, or even just religion as well. Okay, and then where are we? That's E for extraordinary, and then S for status and significance. And this one's weird, and I made a point of making this last rather than story last, because nobody likes to admit they want status. It's awkward, if you say, "Oh yeah, I really want to have status," but social media is a gamified version of social status. Which is why it's also really dangerous for us. But status is important because if you have status, people laugh at your jokes more. You get a better partner. You live longer. There's an amazing piece of work by an Australian chap, and in the book Status Syndrome, he's presented this at the WHO, etc. But status helps you live a longer, happier, healthier life. And so, sod it. I want status, and I think you should too. I think we should all want more status. If someone says to you, eat more vegetables, you'll live longer. You're like, yeah, I'll eat more vegetables. I'll try to do it. So get more status. And that's awkward. But status that sort of removes you from other people, that's like, I'm so high and mighty, look at how great I am, it is unhealthy. Whereas if you get the type that's significance, which is really about giving to others. So it's not like building a pile of money and being rich. Although money helps you have status, obviously, it's also about education, all sorts of forms of status. You think about a doctor has status in our community. Teachers have status different to the money that they earn, within the society. So that has an important impact. But yeah, it's not just piling up money, it's about giving. So significance is about doing things for other people, and kindness is a wild superpower. When you're kind to somebody, your oxytocin goes up. When someone is kind to you, your oxytocin goes up. So when you're kind to somebody, your oxytocin goes up, their oxytocin goes up, and anyone who witnesses or hears about the kindness, their oxytocin goes up. So oxytocin, it's the love drug, they say, but it's also the drug that binds us. Soldiers, when they walk in step with each other, have oxytocin. There's an argument that says that telling stories is about oxytocin. There's one that says it's about mirror neurons. It doesn't really matter which way it works. But so oxytocin binds us together as groups. Obviously, groups is what it's made us survive. But it's certainly associated when you hug your child or whatever, oxytocin. So the thing is, when you're kind to somebody, everybody wins. It's this crazy sort of superpower. Anyway, so stories. Thank you.
We will never hear you. We will never refer to stories ever again the same way after this explanation, and that's really beautiful. And James, you were mentioning music as this incredible thing that binds all of us together. So maybe it's a good time for you to give us your first song.
Okay, great. Let's just go through them one happily. Let's do Young, Gifted and Black by Big Daddy Kane. I think this came out in 1987 or 88. So I remember being young and loving this song, but I still listen to it to this day. I don't tend to do so many speeches nowadays, but I was a keynote speaker for a bunch. I mean, I still do. I'll go on stage. But sometimes if I travel to another country, I will listen to this the night before or before I go, because it's this... It reminds me of something. I studied yoga in Rishikesh in India about 20 odd years ago, and this guy talks about this thing, Manipura chakra, which is in your stomach, and you feel this sense of power and this sense of ability, and it's got this kind of driving I think it's baseline in it. It's got this kind of that is really, really powerful. Now I used to be young. I am questionably gifted. I'm definitely not black, but Big Daddy Kane bounces off this beat in this beautiful way. It's an exquisite piece of music. And at the beginning, it has this man saying, I make no apology for what I'm about to say. And it also has this thing about when a person comes into existence. So it's got a real sense of like power and potential, real potential, and no apology for that potential. And yeah, it also reminds me of my best friend from school as well, because he got me into it. And we saw this guy, Big Daddy Kane, play live. Yeah, it's a
well, then let's listen to Big Daddy Kane.
Now that we're all powered up. I think I've read that the experiences we live actually create our identity. They build our identity. Not like possessions, although you did mention status, and I do understand that for many people, status ends up being their identity, or at least faking as identity. But I think the real identity comes from the true experiences. And I wonder how you connect that with, what would be meaningful experiences like a pilgrimage or a wilderness walk or climbing Kilimanjaro or Everest or whatever is your Everest, versus buying stuff in terms of building your identity?
Great question. I will just say that my dad has climbed Kilimanjaro with no assistance. He just went up for a walk, I think. But he was living in Tanzania at the time, and he has a ridge on his nose from where he burnt his nose. It's quite funny. And that is a much better piece of social capital than any car. You know, yeah, he's driven Porsches and BMWs and Mercedes, and they're nice, great cars. But so many people. He's been to the top of Kilimanjaro. That's cool, right? That's cool.
That doesn't get old or rusty.
It doesn't get old or rusty. There's this study that shows that when people draw themselves, as if they're doing a picture, and they draw like the 5 material goods that matter to them and the 5 experiences, they just tend to draw those experiences closer to them. Because, and that's not to say that, you know, I remember my first car, and I remember other things that I've had, but things do not have the same magic as experiences. And when you mentioned about the pilgrimage there, and one of my colleagues, actually former colleagues, Olivia, who used to work with me, she went on this kind of semi-pilgrimage thing with a Japanese Zen master in Japan, and you got dressed up for it and the whole thing. And there's something, you know, we've always looked up at mountains. There is obviously awe in mountains, and doing something over a significant period of time, especially I'm playing here because I don't know this, I'm just conjecting, whatever, I'm trying to figure it out. It's just that we live in a world of instant gratification. Same day delivery. Order it now, you get it in 20 minutes. Bite-sized pieces of information. And to do something different, let's go back to the story structure. Extraordinary. To go for a long walk is very different to how we exist today. So actually a pilgrimage is probably much more powerful than it ever was, because in the medieval times people tended to, you know, not everyone could afford horses, so walking from one place to another was what you did anyway. The
regular thing.
Right, that was what I mean. But even then it was respected, obviously, because it had a certain energy to it. And if you look at gosh, I'm trying to remember now, to an extent, collective effervescence, when everybody does something at the same time. But I remember talking to this cognitive scientist, kind of anthropologist and neuroscientist, this super bright woman who talked about what is it about ritual. Okay, the thing about ritual, it's got this thing, causal opacity. Sorry, these ideas stick in my head because it was brilliant. Causal opacity, as in opaqueness, just opaque as in very fuzzy why it happens and why. So, and the thing about holy things, the things about ritual, is there's no. I mean, maybe there's just an example of the placebo effect, which is also powerful in itself, of course. But it's that if we say something is holy, it is. If we say something is meaningful, it is. And it's partly that, you know, since the cognitive revolution of, 60 thousand years ago or something, we've existed in a reality that's parallel, you know, story. We live in a storied reality. So once you call a long walk, a pilgrimage, it does something it has causal opacity, to have a power on us because we say it has power. It's a bit like, you go and sit in a church. That's not just a building. That's a building that other people have. I guess it's also the idea that other people believe something is something too, and it is the story around that. So you're not just doing something, you're actually, I guess to an extent, you're stepping into a story, you're stepping into a belief system. And by stepping into that belief system, especially the longer and the older it is, you get away from, the terror of existence and the meaning. You give shape to an existence. There's that thing, the TMT, the terror management theory. Did you ever come across this thing? About the idea, a lot of what we do is that if you actually stare into the abyss,
yeah.
It's like thinking that animals have religion, right? Which to us seems just daft. Where does a sheep go when they die? To go to sheep heaven? No, that doesn't make any sense at all. But we just kill the sheep and eat the sheep, and so be it. That's the sheep. And we don't like to think that's what happens to us. Oh no, we're special. We're not just something in a long line of processes. We like to think that life is the special thing, whether it is or not is up for debate. According to a very clever friend of mine, anyway. I'd like to think there is some life, but still. So when we step into a story, things make sense to us, and we're stepping into something that maybe gives us something more meaningful. Yeah, I don't know the answer. Sorry,
but which is very interesting because at the moment, one of the things that continues to grow 2 digits in the world is tourism. So destinations, and the more you have different destinations and beautiful destinations, they all look like beautiful. It's a little bit like walking into the wine section, right? And you have 500 bottles of good wine, and the question is, what is the difference between a good wine and a good wine? So what is the difference between a good destination and a good destination? My question for you is, how can then destinations move from selling attractions to creating maybe meaningful human experience? How do we do this?
You guys ask very good questions. That is a fantastic question. There's a simple answer. Talk to Terry Stevens. Very clever man. So shocking, really. He came and presented for us. I'll gladly connect you with him. He's quite brilliant, actually. He applies a lot of the thinking around stories and doing stuff that's genuine and meaningful, rather than sort of flash in the pan, pop-uppy things. One of the things about experiences rather than things, and this is borrowing from what's his name, Abraham Maslow, and I think it was in one of his books about peak experiences. Forgive me, I think maybe it was called Peak Experiences. And he said that and this was about flow and peak experiences. I think he was talking about a rose. He says it's not the rose that's the peak experience. It's how you look at it. Mm-hmm. So it's not the place that you go to or the thing that you do. It's your appreciation of it. It's how you approach it. So pilgrimage is a really good example. And, some people would just go for a walk. And that's great. Some people would just go to, Coimbra and take some pictures. Very happy, very nice. And others could really get something from it. And maybe that's a bit like the Buddhist thing about being, isn't it about open and being kind of, childlike? And I think there's so if that's a question from a personal point of view, the key is to be a tourist. Yeah. I mean, I treat my own city. I find myself looking at things that are kind of like, oh, how about that? The key is to open our eyes and open our ears and maybe open our other senses and actually appreciate it. I think we hurry through life. We eat quickly. We get from one place to another. I used to have a boss when I once talked to him about the architecture in not a particularly pretty place of London, but I was like, have you seen that building? He said, I don't look up. It's like, whoa, no, this architecture is beautiful. All you got to do is look up, because lots of our high streets are so boring and, yeah. But if you look up at the buildings, wow, all of a sudden you can see the history of the place. It's interesting. So from a personal point of view, is to have that kind of childlike wonder. But from a destination's point of view, It's to be real. I mean, I think it's to use that story stuff, and obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but the World Experience Organization, what we do is we figure out how to make great experiences. So it's to borrow from what other people have done, but it's not to, I think creating spectacle is a bit of a dozy thing to do. It costs a lot of money. It looks fancy. Woo. What does it do? Where does it reach people? That's not to say, who doesn't like fireworks, and some of those magical things that Moment Factory do are just beautiful. But something where someone co-creates it. Look, that's what I've got a bit of a theory. I'll be careful what I say here, because I suspect you have people from all over the world. But I have a bit of a theory about why American people really like theme parks, more so than I would say Europeans. And I think that's because if you go to an old place that's also got new stuff going on, it is a theme park. I mean, look at New York. New York is a theme park. That's an amazing place to go play and have your own stories and see what the stories that are there, as opposed to some of these architected things with rides on that kind of, you go fast and okay, great. But there's very little meaning in that, as opposed to, finding your way around Paris and go to the Rue de Oberkampf and trying to find a jazz bar and stuff. That's an adventure.
Yeah, well,
And talking about adventure, what if we go for your next music?
Okay, remind me. It was it's Beast of Burden, isn't it?
Exactly.
Beast of Burden, Rolling Stones. I love the guitar riff. I can almost play this. I can sing the song the whole way through. Years gone by, I probably would have said, "Let's get it on, Marvin Gaye." I like that kind of music. I used to be not a very good DJ, and I used to play that sort of music loud and play it over and over again. And I've seen the Stones play, and I've seen them play this song. And I was at Twickenham, in fact, with my dad. And I remember it coming on, and I just was like, whoa, we were talking at the time, like, well, let's stop talking, let's go and hear that. And I've got a lot of time for the way that Mick Jagger plays the crowd. The man is a firestorm of electric energy. But what's interesting when you see them play is the collective effervescence of the crowd. Keith Richards plays the music. They make the music happen. But Jagger plays the crowd, and that's an amazing thing to be able to do. Where it's exquisite, and I think it's got a kind of rhythm blues kind of feel. It's a great record. I like the general vibe of it. Yeah. And
all right.
It makes me think of that.
Let's go into it. Well, thank you for that. I always love the Rolling Stones. Definitely one of my favorite bands ever. Um, I think it was in your book, Time and How You Spend It, um, that you explore time as luxury. And I personally feel time is the ultimate luxury. And many times when people ask if our trips, our programs are a luxury, I say, well, I think it's the ultimate luxury that you take time for yourself, but we don't go for luxury hotels or conventional, let's say, luxury. So share with us a bit more about that, how time really, I mean, it's the old saying, time is money, but I feel it's a much more valuable money because you cannot get more of it. Money, you can always get more, but time, that's what you have.
That line is literally in my book. And it's funny. I think saying that time is the ultimate luxury is time is it's the most valuable resource ever on the planet for anybody ever, because it's running out. I mean, it's, depending on how old you are, you're on the up the hill or on the slide down. But it's once it's gone, it's gone. It depends. If you've got a different kind of religion and you think this is just a brief stop before you reach this sort of eternity thing, that sounds great. But we also don't know if that's true. And it's going. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It's going, and it'll be gone, and you'll be old and dead before you wanted to be, and everyone you know will die, and then everyone that they knew will die, and you'll be completely forgotten. And so we have a brief moment in the sun, a brief moment to do something, just as the plants in your garden, and so it's not that time is the ultimate luxury, but maybe it feels that way in a world that feels busy. It's that time is the ultimate and most important precious resource, which is why figuring out how to spend your time and doing something meaningful with your time strikes me as the most important thing you can possibly do. If you watch television, and you watch a lot of television, maybe that makes you happy. I don't know. But the chances are just the times suck. Just to be clear, I like to watch a bit of TV at the end of the day. It's a nice way to switch off. But you got to be careful with these things. I think we live in a world of distractions. We live in a world of, no one gets to their deathbed and thinks, I really wish I'd seen season 5. Oh, if only I'd seen season 5, now I could die happy. You're like, what? No, come on. No, that's not. So, and I think there's a brilliant woman called Cassie McGillner-Holmes at UCLA, who's done some work on time. I interviewed Cassie a few times, and I think she has her own book on time as well. And one of the interesting things that she looked at a few years back was a sort of helicopter view of time. And if you can rise above just your present, and you can perceive the longevity of your existence, it helps you make better decisions sometimes, because you see how different things will fit into your existence. A bit like the difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification. It's trying to see the long game from a time point of view. I'm trying to think of the studies that they did. They get people to think about time. Therefore, as opposed to wasting your time, people that play those games on their telephones. I'm sure that's really fun for them, and each their own. But be careful, because if you spend all your time on your phone playing a game, maybe you could have been talking to your brother or your sister or a friend, or doing something that was vaguely meaningful. So all these there always have been, but in today's world there are even more distractions, and distractions from what matter, and those will take your time and you'll never get it back.
100%. And actually, time flies, but you are literally the pilot. I always like to say that I stopped watching TV 26 years ago, in 2000. And I always like to think I didn't miss anything that important, because if it's important, somebody will tell you. Don't worry. And on that note, and we are almost finishing this beautiful conversation that could have gone on for a lot longer. We have one more question, but before that, maybe you want to give us your third song, because we are very curious what Sam Garrett can do to us today.
Look, this is a weird choice because it's not a famous song, and I think other people may or may not like it. I think it's really nice. I think it's got a nice sound to it, but it's also pretty hippie, and it's about appreciation of the trees and nature and yourself, and it reads to me a bit like a prayer. I would kind of, it's not secular, it's much more, it's probably an animistic prayer, but a prayer to, of existence. And it's got a bit of this kind of, what is it? I think it's got a Spanish in it or something. So I haven't listened to it for a while because my Spotify subscription needs to be paid for. So, but there was a time when I would listen to this. My office is 7 minutes walk from home. And I would listen to this on the way from home to the office, and it would stop me to look at the trees, and I would stop and I'll touch the trunk and just a little hello friend, it's just something living on this planet same as me, sucking up nutrients, just doing its thing, getting a bit of sunshine. And sometimes it brings me to tears, this song, actually. I think it has a beauty in it. There's a prayer put to music. And I think it reminds us of what matters.
Well, thank you. Let's listen to Sam Garrett and Mama.
beyond our beliefs. We can come home, children, don't be afraid. Life is your teacher, so don't run away. Stay wild and free, raise your hands up and pray. This is our moment, there's only today. Hey mamacita, show us the way. We'll no longer hide from the shadows and pain. We are alive, we are awake. We are the open and this is our fate. Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, y fuego mi espíritu. Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, y fuego mi espíritu. Yeah, yeah. You bring us medication, you bring us meditation. Jedma, Jedma. I feel the earth beneath my feet. I feel the life within her leaves. I feel her song in the rain that falls. I feel the warmth in her heart that calls. I feel the earth beneath my feet. I feel the life within her leaves. I feel her song in the rain that falls. I feel the warmth in her heart that calls. Hey mama, hey mama, hey. 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 Hey mama, hey mama, hey.
Well, thank you very much, James. It's our last question. It feels that it went too fast, but anyway, that's what we do with time, right? So the last question is classic. We love the answers, and we try to repeat it every guest. So if you had a time capsule, no constraint, so any size, no budget constraint, you can decide whatever you want to put inside this time capsule. We're going to send it out into the universe, and maybe tomorrow or maybe 1,000 years from now, someone or maybe some entity will open up this time capsule. What would you like to place inside as a gift, as a message, whatever you want? What would you like to place inside this time capsule?
Makes me think of that movie Hail Mary. Have you seen Hail Mary?
No.
It's really beautiful. It's shockingly beautiful. I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. He goes off into space and meets up with this alien and stuff, and it's amazing. And one of the lovely things about a lot of these space movies is that they make you think about the planet we come from, you know, and everything that mattered there. And in that, he goes away and comes back again. And by the time he comes back, it's, you know, 70 years later kind of thing. So, of course, everything has changed. Actually, he doesn't come back. Okay, what would I put in it? I want to be glib and say a bottle of vodka and a little note that says, go on, drink it. But no, what would I put? As you were saying that to me initially, and I was listening to the, I was thinking it was just a capsule. Like, again, I was like, I'm going to get my son and my daughter and my wife and, you know, my mum, my dad and my brother and my nieces, and we're going to get in the time capsule, we'll go somewhere, maybe we pop out of the thing, and I don't know. So I'm assuming that you can't be alive, you can't just like show up somewhere, because if
no restraints.
Okay, no restraints. Get those people, yeah, and the dog, because my son would be so cross if we didn't bring the dog with us. Get those people, cryogenically keep us alive, whatever it is, so we can pop out and go have fun on some other planet or some other existence and be like, oh my God, this place is weird, but oh wow, you're here too. Oh yeah, let's have fun. I think that would be ridiculous and comic. And yeah, you know, I'm going on holiday with my mum in a few weeks' time, and you know, we always have fun time. And ditto, I went on holiday with my dad a while back. Yeah, we always have fun time. So exploring stuff with those people who matter to me would be, yeah, brilliant. I mean, that's actually, you know what though? The funny thing is, what I'm really envisaging here, and I'm cheating, is that's an aeroplane. An aeroplane is this capsule. It's a metallic thing that flies through the air, and it takes you, you know, it spins you. If you go to, certainly from the UK to Marrakesh, that's a lot. I mean, that is a, you know, I used to say to people going to India as well. I mean, it's time travel, because you've got, I remember going to Mumbai, it was years ago, and, you know, there's elephants walking on the street. You've got, at the same time, you've got the 21st century and the 14th century and all sorts of other centuries. And you go to fairs and you have those 14th century madrasas that are there and donkeys walking around. And so we're, anyway, so I will stop. But just to say that travel is a bit of time travel too. But maybe that's the other thing about being awake and having your eyes open and listening. You know, when you listen to a piano, well, that was invented in, like, pianos are like since the 17th, I think, century. I mean, that's a thing. That's what you're listening to. You know, or if you read Pride and Prejudice or some book from a long time ago, that's a form of time travel. Anyway, that's what I would do. I'd gather my little gang and we would go have some fun.
Lovely. Thank you so much, James. It's been a lot of fun and really inspiring, this conversation. It could go on for a very long time, but time flies. So it was really, really great.
Obrigado. Really amazing questions. Thank you. Really inspiring questions, and making me talk about stuff I haven't talked about for ages. So, yeah, obrigado for having me.
Keep Walking With Me. It is a podcast inspired by the Walking Mentorship experience. Step by step, we walk together towards the best version of ourselves. For more information about our mentoring programs, visit our website walkingmentorship.com.